appropriate action to approve the targeted improvement plans for Vesta Stonewall Flanders, Bel Air Elementary, as required by TEA. So I move that we approve this item.
Second.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the item, and I have a second from Mrs. Carrillo. All those in favor? Had somebody already made the motion? I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, presentation. Okay, just making sure. So, motion passes. Item 6B, hearing, 6C, consideration and approval of the following orders authorizing the issuance of separate series of refunding bonds. I believe we have a presentation by, correct, Mr. Acosta, in your group, sir?
Yes, ma'am. This evening, we have Mr. Acosta with RBC Capital Markets and Clay Binford from Norton Fulbright. As we discussed in the finance meeting and earlier this evening, there's a refunding opportunity. There's three separate items because there's three separate approaches to doing the type of refunding that we're looking at. However, if the board chooses to move forward with the refunding, there's a simple or a more streamlined motion to be read. But at this time, Mr. Acosta will cover some of the highlights of what got presented at the Finance Committee to give an overall understanding of what the savings are that the district will receive as a result of this refunding. Mr. Acosta.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Mr. Acosta? No, you have to turn it on. There's a button. There you go, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. I appreciate that. Members of the board, thank you for this evening for allowing us to come forth. I'm Richard Acosta, the district's financial advisor, and along with Mr. Binford with Norton Rose Fulbright, we have been comprehensively monitoring the district's outstanding debt and looking for ways to reduce your interest payments. And that's essentially what we have here today. The market has continued to move in favor of the district, and now we're at a point where we could refund two series of bonds and essentially save a little under $6.9 million. I'm going to cover this. I know it's been a long evening, and I'm just going to focus on a couple of slides that will kind of streamline the process, because I think we did have a meeting there at the Finance Committee, and over the years the board has been pretty, I guess we've presented refunding ideas in the past, so I want to make sure we move this along for you. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, there you go. If we go to slide number 3, this is the district's outstanding debt right here. And you can see you have about $276 million outstanding from various series of bonds from 2001 to 2015. The ones in the dark blue are the bonds that we've looked at. The 2017s, those are currently callable, along with the 2019s, those are callable as well. And both of those, based upon the interest rates right now that we're looking at, in the way it's structured, we can save the district a substantial amount of money. The district also has a small piece of a variable rate, and this kind of shows you a little more in depth of that side of your portfolio, broken down from variable rate to fixed rate, and that was part of your new money bond deal. If we have two different slides in the market, and this basically is like an overview of how low interest rates are, but I want to focus in on this slide right here, slide 7. In slide 7, that bottom slide on the bottom half of the slide, that's basically the ranges from a 1-year to a 30-year bond, and it shows you the range over the last 20 years. And you can see at the bottom is the lowest it's been within the 20 years. The red line is where we're currently at. Rates are extremely low, and what's also very interesting is very flat. From you look at the 1-year rate versus what a 30-year rate is, it's still less than a little over 2%, right around there. So it's about 100 basis points between 1 year to the 30-year, which means it doesn't cost that much to put your debt out in the long term. Normally they're much more steeper, but you can see rates have come down tremendously. This slide shows you the refundings you've done. Slide number 9, I'm sorry about that. This is kind of showing you the district has been very proactive, like we talked about earlier in the presentation, on going to capturing savings. And over the last 8 refundings that we've done, we've saved roughly about $15 million in gross savings, or about 11% in net present value savings. What that really has allowed the district to do is that second to the bottom bullet point, the last bond deal that we had, we called the largest bond election in the district's history with, and created 3 cents capacity, and basically we're able to fund those projects with no tax rate increase. So that by being proactive, the district was able to kind of allow to reduce its interest to be able to do more projects with the same tax rate. This is a little background on bank qualified. The district has done quite a few bank qualified transactions. I won't spend a lot of time on that, and I'll talk about it on this slide right here. Slide number 11. This is our capital plan, or the plan of finance to refund these bonds that we're looking at. The 2007s have a lot of savings in them, and the district has not done a bond deal in 2016. If we can issue out some of these bonds in refunding mode as a bank qualified, that allows banks to bid on those. And since the banks are prohibited from getting a benefit if it's less than $10 million, I mean, if it's over $10 million, this becomes very attractive to them because it's going to be under $10 million, and the bank are going to bid aggressively on that because they get to write off some of the interest that they receive. So you get market rates that are below the general market rates, so to speak. So that's going to help the district. And then we're going to take the rest of the 2007s and we'll issue them sometime in January or February, depending on the market conditions, along with the 2009s, and that's the bottom bold bullet point. So the capital plan right now, the refunding plan consists of 3 bonds to refund. And in aggregate, if we look at the next slide right here, slide 12, we could see that you're going to save between the 2016 refunding, which would be bank qualified, the 2017 A's, which would be the remainder of the 2007s, and then the 2017 B's, which are the 2009 bonds. That's going to save a little under $6.9 million in net present value savings. In gross savings, it's about $8 million, and in net present value as a percent, it's about 13.2 million. We've already begun this process. If we look at slide number 14, we've already submitted some applications to the TEA to receive the PSF guarantee. We've been working on some of the offering documents. We've sent some items to the rating agencies, and what we're here today is to kind of present this and seek formal approval for these 3 transactions. And I'd let Mr. Binford talk about the parameter orders that we have in front of us that talk about the specific agenda items. But does anybody have any questions for me with regard to the financing?
Any questions?
So, Mr. Acosta,
Yes,
you
Mr.
presented this to us in the finance committee. So basically, in not so many words, we're refinancing to take a higher rate, trying to get lock in a lower rate.
Yes, sir. That's absolutely correct.
Right. So we're refinancing in order to get the lower rate so we can pay off more debt quicker.
Yeah, interest rates were much higher back in 2007 and in 2009 than what they are now. And since they got dropped down, it's like we're basically refinancing your house. We're keeping the same debt structure. All we're doing is going out there and lowering the interest rate.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Abundis?
So I asked this question earlier. I did call and ask. I wanted to make sure in public. So my concern was, I love the interest rates going lower, but I don't want to extend. Some people take lower interest rate but extend their loan.
Yes, sir.
By my understanding, we're getting the lower interest rate, but the loan stays the same length, correct?
Yes, the structure stays the same. That is based upon the PSF guarantee as well as your state funding. We cannot extend the life of your debt, so it's going to mirror the same type of structure you have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you, Mr. Abundis. Thank you very much, Mr. Acosta. Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
So in the savings part of the $13 million that they're talking about, is that going to come and paying off and just paying off the bonds, or that's going to be coming back? That's money coming back to the district.
It's
Reinvest.
That's a very good question. It's hard, but it's not going to be money that's going to go back into interest and seeking fund. It's savings that you would have had to. When we look at the savings, we compare it to what you would have had to pay to what you have to pay now.
Right. So that money's going to come back how?
It's going to be in the form of less tax rate or or bonding capacity. But it's going to be in the form of less tax rate, really, so to speak. So what we're going to do is, it would be like if you refinanced your house, you would go to you'd go to a new bank, you'd get a loan from the new bank, and they would take those proceeds and pay off your old bank. You wouldn't be able to kind of get extra dollars in your pocket, so to speak. That's what we're going to do here. We're going to sell some new refunding bonds. The new investors are going to give us the money, and we're going to pay off the old debt. And now we have lower debt service schedules or interest payments that we would have had to pay. I mean, that we're going to pay as compared to what we would have had to pay.
So nothing comes back to the direct fund balance, nothing comes back?
Yeah, nothing comes back into the actual fund balance. Anything that goes into the INS fund balance can only be paid for paying for bonds, for principal and interest. But in this case here, your tax rate is you're going to create capacity in that tax rate. So you can do additional projects, or we can pay off debt quicker, keep the same tax rate like we've done in the past, and use that excess capacity to pay off debt quicker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Uresti. Thank you, Mr. Acosta.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I think that's it. So at this time, we have items 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, and that's it. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion. I move to approve the orders authorizing the issuance of separate series of refunding bonds as listed on the agenda. That's my motion. So I made a motion. I have a second from Ms. Carrillo. All those in favor? All those against? Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to item D. Consider and take possible action to approve the final rankings for selection of a CML for the central office parking lot project and authorize the superintendent to negotiate and execute the contract. At this time, I believe Mrs. Azima and your group are going to present.
Good evening. I just want to take a minute to introduce Coy Ballard to my right and Kenny Roy to my left. As soon as the screen is up, just to give you a background before the projects start, Coy would be presenting the projects. These delivery methods were sealed proposals, so they are not as part of Cadence McShane. You will be seeing 2 different independent contractors that are going to be bidding that have bid the jobs, and they're the lowest cost, which we're proposing tonight. On Terra Wells, we have Clearfield, who was the lowest bid. Their base bid was $449,000. The base program was $537,000. So that's where that $87,000 saving that you've been hearing tonight. So I don't want to say everything from my memory because this is going to be Coy's presentation, but I'm here to answer any question.
So Madam Chair, so the recommendation is for RL Road?
I think we are presenting Terra Wells first, and on that project is Clearfield as the lowest
Are we doing Terra
price
Wells?
contractor.
Okay, from what I show you, we're doing item D, which is the central office parking lot project.
Mr. Soto, are we presenting Terra Wells first, or?
For the rankings for selection of a CMAR for the central office parking lot project and authorize the superintendent to negotiate and execute the contract is one information.
Let me just go based on my memory while they're working on the technical part. Basically, on the ranking, there were 5 companies that bid the project. On Terra Wells project, we had a company called Clearfield, who was the lowest bid. It was a sealed proposal delivery method. We did not take a best value. We just took the lowest number that was bid out. That basically has given us additional parking space that basically was approved on April the 11th, 2016 bond program. As you recall, bond passed in May of 2015. However, the program for the projects was done after the bond approval and after we were hired. On the screen, you'll see the members that have been involved in the ranking of the project, and that's how the score was identified for the two different project and two different contractor. On project of central office, the rank number one company is a different company than Clearfield, is RL Rhodey, and they were ranked number one. This particular company has done work in the past with the district. The last project that they did for the district was a Leal field, soccer field project, which was about $139,000. They were okay. The other company has not worked for the district, but they're the lowest price, and district conducted reference checking and the references checked out. So that's the ranking for the two parking lot improvements that we have, and both projects have come under budget. Mr. Soto? So after the ranking, can we present now?
Are we going to approve the rankings
Yeah.
of the two companies?
So we're on item D, Madam Chair, so I move to approve the rankings as noted in our PowerPoint for central office parking lot project,
Okay, so we have a motion.
and authorize the superintendent to negotiate and execute the contract.
So do we not present the PowerPoint? Okay.
I second.
We have a motion from Mr. Abundis and a second from Ms. Carrillo. All those in favor, or any discussion? No? All those in favor? All those against? Motion passes. Item E, to consider and take possible action to approve the final rankings for the selection of a CMAR for Terra Wells parking lot projects and authorize the superintendent to negotiate and execute the contract.
Madam Chair,
This is not a
Yes.
CMAR.
so approve as presented in the PowerPoint.
Okay. So we have a motion from Mr. Abundis to approve,
Second.
and we have a second from Mr. Moreno. Any discussion? Okay. We're going to go ahead and take the vote. All those in favor?
Discussion, so it's the same.
Okay. Any other questions?
No,
We have a
I'm
motion.
just going with the recommendations that are there.
Okay, so we have the motion from Mr. Abundis and a second from Mr. Moreno. All those in favor? All those against? Motion passes.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
can I make a request that we go to Terra Wells parking lot alternates first before we do the central office? So can we move item G before F, if you don't mind? If we can take a vote for that, rather than knock out Terra Wells real quick. It seems like central office is going to take us a little bit of time, so we can move up Terra Wells so we can knock it out.
It's on the
Real quick.
screen.
Mr. Abundis would like to make a motion to move item G.
Move item G before F.
Before F?
G before F.
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion from Mr. Abundis and a second from Mrs. Carrillo. All those in favor? All those against? Motion passes. So item G, hear and take appropriate action to allow staff, project manager, the authority to negotiate with selected vendor to achieve alternates that will stay within a budgeted amount for the Terra Wells parking lot project. Okay, so we can go ahead and present that, Mrs. Azima.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We'll start with Terra
Thank you.
Wells. Just to recap very quickly, there were 5 bidders. The number one ranked was Clearfield Construction. As Jasmine said, they had not worked for the district, but the district checked their references and those references checked out. The base bid for the project includes the resurfacing of the parking lot, doing curbs and associated work, as well as expanding the drive-through parent drop-off in cars. Just to orient you on the screen, the top is Hutchins, McCollum, and campus is to the west. The school itself wraps around in this direction. This is the drive-through that's been expanded to 3 lanes. The light gray in the slide is the asphalt paving for the parking lot itself.
Can I ask a quick question on this slide? Can you tell me where the front of the school is on this slide? I'm sorry. Just point it out.
Excuse me, I don't think this is the PowerPoint that was submitted on Friday based on the building committee requesting photos to be shown, Mr. Soto. This is the old PowerPoint. This is not the front. This is the old one.
Was there a different slide that we should have had?
The building committee, Madam Chair, the building committee had requested to attach some photos, and we ended up getting them the next day, and I believe that we had to put them on. But just looking at it, I guess they didn't make it, but there were some pictures that did depict where these areas were at, so
those photos are
so you can identify. No, that's just a site plan, but it was an actual picture of the parking lot.
We have the USB. Erica from our office is going to go ahead and load it, which is what has been provided for the board package on Friday. What happened, Ms. Clusser, is on Thursday, Mr. Moreno requested some photos to be taken and explanation of various items that was presented on the building committee. So all day on Friday, ourselves, Kenny Rhodey, worked on giving the appropriate information that the building committee had requested, and that's the PowerPoint that was provided to be on the board packet. So it's what we have in the USB is identical to what we provided on Friday. So that will explain the project a little bit easier for everyone to vote on.
Madam Chair, the only difference that PowerPoint has, it just depicts what areas there are going to be alternates, and it has HISD staff is requesting some of the alternates. That's the verbiage that changed on the PowerPoints. So it's the exact same PowerPoint. It just has some pictures that give you an actual picture of where these areas are at.
Okay, so I have a question on alternates. What exactly are we referring to when we say alternates? Can
Okay,
somebody
here it
explain
is.
that to me, please?
Yes,
Yeah.
this is.
And if I may just clarify briefly the use of that term. We used alternates, we called them alternates because we were asked after the basic program had been approved by the board to get information on pricing for some additional work that was outside the parking lots. So we called them alternates so that the bidders would understand that they were to give a separate price. But they're actually small, separate projects that for the consideration of the board. The good news tonight is that these are the first two projects that we're bringing on the new 2015 bond projects. As Jasmine said, they're both under budget. So what you're faced with tonight basically is a choice to decide how the savings that is being garnered by the district can be utilized. They can be used for other projects. They can be used for things on this project. So the alternates, quote unquote, are things that were asked by the staff to bring to you for consideration subsequent to your approval of the program on April the 11th for both of them.
Okay, we got that. Can we get to the alternates, please?
Yeah, okay. All right. The existing conditions, as you know, the parking lots are not in good shape. Drainage problems and other things, and essentially resurfacing the parking lots and adding additional amenities to make them safer and better looking. As I said, the gray area is the area of the existing parking area that is being resurfaced. The darker color gray is the new drive-through that's been expanded to 3 lanes. The darker color gray is thicker asphalt. More substantial, will wear better for heavier traffic, and also the fact that not only cars but some service and delivery trucks utilize that drive to go to this area behind the cafeteria. So cars move through here, drop off students, and go out onto the main street. There were 71 parking spaces originally. In the newly designed lot, there are going to be 92 spaces. The other thing that's going to look substantially different, besides everything looking really good, is the fence that goes across the parking area right now, which is very dilapidated and served no purpose. It has been removed and not being put back. Looking at
Madam
the,
Chair, what is the part that was left out on right there we were looking at right now?
the clouded area, Mr. Uresti? Is that what you mean?
No, the part you said that wasn't part of the original budget.
Oh, that, we'll be talking about that. That is the courtyard area that's adjacent to the school and outside of the parking lot. You know, the area that's covered with blue canopies? I've got pictures of it.
Yeah?
Yeah,
And
that-
it goes to the back building and
Right.
I believe they're going to show those pictures here in just a
Yeah,
moment.
this
Is that correct?
is the area looking more or less pretty much south. The blue canopies are over the courtyard area.
But we're already going up to the fence, correct?
I'm sorry?
We're going up to the fence already, right?
Yes.
The picture you were just at right now? No.
Madam Chair,
Okay,
That area.
That
Mr.
that
Alessi?
fence line right there, are we not already going up to there?
We're correcting the grading in the parking lot, which will keep water from running into that area. And
No, the question is, where that, if you go back again to where the 3 cars were parked side by side.
The other picture of the other courtyard?
No, you had a picture up right now. You just passed it up.
this one,
No, you're going the wrong way.
that's,
That right there. That right there, that's in the parking lot itself. That wasn't included?
this is not in the parking lot itself. The parking lot is out of this photo. This is the area just immediately adjacent to the fence that it.
That's what I'm saying. Up to that fence right there was not included originally?
It's included. To the fence is included.
Okay, that was.
oh, hold on, Kenny, can you, that is included where those cars are at?
I think if you just allow us to go to the 2-3 slides from here, you'll see what the alternates are and what the area is. The parking is the front of the school district. Anything that you have to the courtyard and the chiller area, which is adjacent to it, is called additional scope, which are.
Yes,
That's what the question is, that where that red car is parked at right there, the SUV, they're up against the fence right there. Does it not include up to that fence?
It includes to the fence that is to the right, because you have a fence that is running where Coy is showing the laser all the way. It does go to that, but
Why didn't we go all the way to the fence? That's part of the parking lot.
because that's as part of the chiller area. Those cars usually are not supposed to park there. The parking is beyond that.
But no, that is part of the parking lot. That's not part of the chiller area. The chiller area is enclosed. My question is, why didn't we include that in the original part of the parking lot, my question?
Those weren't included because they're not striped parking lots. It's parking spaces.
They're not designated
Part of
parking
the-
spots?
Part of the entire park? That's part of the
But
entire
Kenny
park?
Brody is the engineer of the record if you have a specific question.
Mr. Udesi, it goes from that corner, there's gonna be a sidewalk that's on that corner, that flat work that you see on your left, so board members, that flat work would run from that corner to the corner of that bumper from that red truck to your far right. There's gonna be a sidewalk that goes there. That other part that Mr. Udesi is asking is not part of the parking lot bid. That's why we asked for it to be an alt one. That's why staff recommended, since it wasn't on there, we asked, what would it cost us to make that, how much would it cost us more as an alternate? And then once you pass that fence, that's the courtyard area. That's the area that we talked to the building committee that does pond, there is drainage issues. Water will settle there for, about 2 to 3 feet high on those kiddos. They're covered up above, but they're getting their feet wet. So we asked for that, for us to have that as an alternate. Those are the 2 alternates that we're bringing, and of course the third one was bringing electrical to have electricity out there.
So that was recommended by staff, sir?
Yes,
By
ma'am.
yourself? Okay,
Yes,
thank you,
ma'am.
sir.
Yeah, it should be noted that the alternates that we're going to show you were in the original program a long time ago, and they were taken out. So that's why we brought it back as an alternate.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Uresti? Thank you, sir. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay, thanks. Moving along then, comparing the program budget approved by the board on April the 11th to the base bid plus contingency that Clearfield, the lower bidder, submitted. There is a net savings of $87,003. The improvements that were asked by staff subsequent to what was approved on April the 11th include, as we just said, this area, which is not part of the parking lot, and the courtyard in the back. This is another view looking west. You see the chiller yard that's fenced in to the right. This is in the opposite direction, looking to the southwest. As you can see, the condition of the paving, and this is where there is a lot of standing water that Mr. Soto mentioned. So the two alternates, basically, two of them are flat work related, concrete in this area and concrete in the courtyard. This area is concrete that is part of the parking lot, and that's concrete because of trucks and unloading and vehicles using the loading dock that's at the back of the cafeteria. These two alternates are about $62,000 broken down as you see them on the screen here. The third one has to do with the electrical. When the board approved the scope for these projects on April the 11th, it was with the proviso, based on the recommendation of the superintendent, that the HISD staff would be doing the items related to electrical conduit and light fixtures, and that would be paid for outside of the bond program. So staff asked to have a price on that so that they could come back to you and give that to you as a choice of what you might want to do if the projects came in under budget, which they have. That particular electrical alternate is $57,734. All told, the three alternates are $119,990. And again, these were things that were requested by staff subsequent to the scope being approved by the board initially on April the 11th, and are not part of the parking lot property.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Oresti?
Mr. Madrigal, since this area is not being driven on, it's where the children walk, can't we just do this internally and the district handle it?
Madam Chair,
Mr.
that was
Madrigal?
some of the dialogue we've had within staff, possibly a future date. Just like here, we recently added lights to the practice band parking area at Harnell High School because we had stubbed out with condo and stuff when we did the band houses. We're just trying to prepare it for future, but we've talked about that. We just wanted to see what the difference is in price to theirs and basically what it would cost, and then we're going to compare it to what it costs us in manpower and what would be the difference. The one thing that we did have a conversation is one thing that we wanted to do is not to go over the budgeted amount. So the staff's recommendation is just for us to do any alternates that do not take us past the budgeted amount that we have for any of these projects. So again, we're asking for some of the pricing just to see where they come at, to see if it's feasible or not, either with them or in the long run to do it ourselves.
And because, again, since there's not vehicles driving on this, it's not something that we have to spend a whole bunch of money in doing underground, adding extra base and what have you.
No, we don't have to.
Do
The only thing is, no, we don't have to. You're correct, sir. The only thing is sometimes with some of these projects, if you're going to spend money on concrete and asphalt and all that, it wouldn't be smart for us to put these alternates in and then to come back 6 months, a year from now, and then cut the pavement to bring in conduit for electric and lighting and things like that. We've never had it, but again, it's just an alternate. We just wanted to see what their prices would be. But again, our goal, district's goal, is to stay under budget for all of the amount that we have a budget amount, that we actually have money in the bank. That Richard said, this is how much money we have for this parking lot, this parking lot, this parking lot. Our goal is to be under that budget.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Hernandez?
Can you approve, can we do alternate 2 without alternate 1? Oh, you need both of them?
I
Okay.
think it would not be a good idea to do one without the other. One is 40,000 roughly, the other one is 20. So the 42,000 one is the courtyard.
Because
This-
they're both in concrete, correct?
Yes, sir. We,
So I think I'm okay with concrete in the courtyard, but I don't think we need cement.
okay, let me answer the question why. If you go asphalt, because the area is so small, you would be about the same cost. We did already the cost on that. And our cost has been so far very accurate. So when you have a larger area, it makes sense to do asphalt. When you have a smaller area, it's a toss-up. The area, once you do the courtyard and then you leave a piece undone, it doesn't look aesthetically just like you have done much of anything. So it's better to do all or none.
Also, the 20,000 alternate is downstream or downhill from the 42,000 alternate, which is the courtyard. So it's designed to work together. So we sort of need to do one first before we do two.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Carrillo?
I just had a quick question.
Go ahead, Ms. Carrillo. Ms. Carrillo had a question. Go ahead.
Sure.
Please.
Okay, once again, what was your recommendation, Mr. Madigan, please?
Ma'am, our recommendation is alternate 1 and 2. We just wanted to get a third one, and I'll ask Mr. Soto too, if Mr. Soto, anything else you want to add?
Sir, these numbers are still negotiable. Our project manager and staff have not sat down and negotiated these numbers. These are numbers that they were submitted. So in the RFP, we can go and negotiate. If we're able to negotiate some of these alts down, even maybe the base bid, and see what that number comes back and present it back to the board to see if we're able to put these alts in at the number that we want, then we can go there and make a decision. And if we don't, if they don't negotiate, then we don't use some of these alts.
Again, Madam Chair, like I said earlier, district staff is not to go over the budgeted amount. We want to be able to do as much as we can, but we will not go over the budgeted amount. We will not ask this board to budget more money than we have for this parking lot. Again, Mr. Soto's correct. The final price, we haven't gotten a GMP on it. I don't know yet what it's going to be. If the savings there, and it allows us to do even the third alternate without putting additional funds into the budget amount, then we'll do so. But right now, we
Okay,
feel
then
comfortable.
I'm ready to make a motion, Madam Chair.
Give me just a minute. Mr. Quesada has a question. Go ahead, Mr. Quesada. And then I have a question after. Go ahead.
I guess my only thought is, and I don't know anything about construction, right? But because we were talking about the lights, right? So I guess my question would be for you guys. So if we lay down the concrete, is there any way to, I guess, I'm trying to think construction right now. So cut the trenches and put an access for the lighting without you guys actually doing any of the lighting stuff, so that we can just do that so the district can come back later on and put lights and just have that access there?
What the alternate is exactly what you discussed, which
Okay.
is the base, the trenching, backfilling, pull, and then later on they can come put the light. The reason that the staff wanted it to add these to scope and call it as alternate for the construction industry practices to get a price. But by the way, this is not a CMAR. This is a traditional competitive bid, which is you get the lowest price as a consideration. Was simply because they may have to pay time and a half, they have to pay hourly, they don't know how much it costs, and they don't know how fast they can do parallel with this contractor. This contractor is going to come in, want to get out, want to get done, and want to move out. So the notion was, let's go ahead and call it, design it, see what the prices are. If there's a saving, you have a choice to use it for these added to scope or not. But regardless, the area has been suffered for a while, and the parking is going to look really nice, and then behind it is this courtyard. We brought it to the board at the time when the programming was getting done, and I recall it was like $58,000 number, but the board did not want it to, at that time, to go forward.
Sure, so the electricity part of that, the 57, would be the exact, I guess, situation I just described to you? Is that what you're saying?
The electrical alternate is for the conduits underneath the base and the foundations for the lights. It is not pulling the wire, it's not raising the poles or putting the lights up.
Gotcha, thank you, sir.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Abundis? I have a, okay.
I can just make a motion, we can discuss it further, just so we can have a motion on the floor.
And go ahead, sir.
So I move to approve alternate 1 and 2 and or 3, as long as they stay within the original budget, as Mr. Madrigal recommended.
Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Abundis. And
1 and 2 for sure, 3 only if we stay within the original budget, as Mr. Yes.
Again, I just wanted to add one more thing again. This is, again, an educated budgeted amount that our vendor has come up with. We won't know the final GMP till we go out and solicit for these prices and get. Now, we feel that it would be under these numbers that are here. So again, like Mr. Bunda said, like I said earlier, we feel right now with the educated dollar amount they gave us and with this other educated on alternate 1 and 2, that we should be able to have enough within the original budget amount that HISD has in the bank to do the parking lot and alternate 1 and 2. But there's also the possibility that after we get the base bid for the entire parking lot, alternate 1 and 2, we may have enough to do alternate 3.
Madam Chair.
give me just a moment here, Mr. Vesti, because we have a motion. So we have a motion from Mr. Abundis and a second from Mr. Mancha. So we're in discussion. I did have a question, sir, that's why. I have a question
Oh, go ahead.
before.
Go ahead.
And so, and I believe Mr. Madrigal just answered that, so our staff has not gone out for a bid yet.
No, this is a bid, ma'am. This is a bid.
I mean, for us to do it in-house. Or negotiations, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we haven't negotiated with
That, exactly. What she's asking is it the final amount? Is that the guaranteed GMP? No.
This is not a GMP, this is not a CMAR, this is a competitive sealed proposal, which means you put the project industry to have different companies bid on it. So district can take the numbers as is or let us negotiate and bring it down. In the past, they allowed us to go negotiate,
Okay.
but it's lowest bid proposals
We're
from.
giving you permission to go out and
Okay,
negotiate.
that's what we need a motion, yes.
Okay, that's part of the motion.
With my question with Mr. Madrigal was, the money that we lost in the security system was how much? The money that we lost in the security system by not including the certain buildings and what have you, how much are we behind budget on that or over budget?
Monsieur, to answer your question right now, at the current time, because we haven't paid that vendor in months and we haven't gotten the final bill invoice from them, they're right now commissioning. I really can't tell you exactly how much. Mr. Soto may have maybe a better idea, or maybe Jasmine, but right now for me to tell you that this is how much money we have extra from that, I really don't know yet. I know that we're close.
We lost money because we didn't include
Well,
certain
there's some
buildings.
Well,
things
you're
there
talking
that-
about the security projects and this.
But the reason I'm asking is because that money that we lost, it could be made up with whatever number somebody threw out at $87,000 that we saved could make up for what we lost on the other part. They'd rather put it in here, and we can do this in-house.
Well, there's some things with the conversion that we've asked them not to go ahead and finish that were originally, so, but again, Mr. Soto, is there anything else? you wanna
I
add?
believe, Mr. Vesti, if I understand you correctly, you're asking how much those 5 buildings would have cost us.
Correct.
Convergent came in at about 143, which was our contingency for the security project. Jasmine did end up talking to them, and they brought it down to, I believe, 78,000, which is close to 80,000, that they would do those 5 buildings. But we decided to hold off because we still have Vestal and Carabel, and we're going to try to package Vestal, Carabel, Finley, and those 5 buildings to get a better price.
So bottom line is we don't have extra money to spend. So I'd rather just hold off on this and wait to see where everything else comes out first. Because we're not going to do this for another year anyway. Another year and a half. Isn't that correct? Next summer we're looking at doing this?
No, we're going forward as soon as the contract is signed after the negotiation. So we're starting in November.
Next summer,
And
I
we're
believe.
finishing in March of next year. The timeline, if you allow me.
Mr. Udasi, I think
November, we talked about-
you're thinking of the owl, I believe, sir.
Yeah, there's a timeline.
That's the one that we're starting in this.
The Terrell Wells in November, in the middle.
No,
Yeah,
and we're
this-
doing Terra Wells in the central office for DR. That was what we had discussed before.
As you see on the screen, March 27th is the date to finish both this project and the central office.
A lot of police officers out there.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do you want to repeat that one, Mr.
My motion is to approve alternate 1 and 2 and/or 3 if we're with, and 3 if we're within the original budget.
You included on that, sir?
And allow Jasmine to negotiate.
Yeah, otherwise it won't
Yeah, and
happen.
allow Jasmine to negotiate these prices further down.
Okay. So,
Second that again.
okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Abundis and a second from Mr. Mancha. We're going to go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor? All those against? Okay, motion passes. So now so that's item G. We're back to letter F. Hear and take appropriate action to allow staff project/project manager the authority to negotiate with selected vendor to achieve alternates that will stay within the budgeted amount for the central office parking lot project.
All right, on the central office, just to recap, there were 5 bidders. That it's ranged from 410,000 up to 918. However, 4 of those five bids were very close together, very close spread. The ranked number 1 company is R.L. Rohde, which is the company that's worked for the district before, as Jasmine said. They did the Leal grading and drainage on the practice field, athletic field at Leal. Existing conditions, you see pictures of the front and the back of the administration building. The idea is to repave, do curbs, expand